Okay, the next exercise for the at-home workout series is going to be using resistance bands. Now, the other workouts have been using body weight and some light free weights and things like that. And resistance bands are considered a form of strength training because they do mimic our muscles. They stretch and they lengthen just like our muscles, but also we can increase tension based on how far away we are from the anchor point or where we're standing on them. We can also change the thickness of the band. There's a lot of different options when it comes to resistance bands, and they have a lot of benefits. We can work at different angles versus dumbbells and free weights are just about gravity and weight. They're just pulling straight down. So when we're using resistance bands, we can add different modalities to it, which actually can increase our strength and angles and things that we can't really address in just using free weights. So they are a bit more what are considered functional training tools, and there's different resistance types for them. I just brought this simple one, and again, these are pretty common nowadays. You can find them in most places. This is just a 3-piece resistance band tubing kit, and it was like $10. They're really simple to use, and they're very effective. So one of the things I'm going to talk about here is using these for attaching them to a door. So there's ways you can actually use these. If I can open this box effectively. And again, you can find these anywhere, any department stores and things like that. And they typically are going to come in a kit with a little carry bag, and they're going to have different resistance bands. So they're typically about the same diameters, but some have a bit thicker tubing, elastic tubing with them. And the main thing with this type here, is they have a little clip on them. So you can actually use one band, you can use 2 bands, up to 3 bands at a time if you really want a ton of resistance. So they come with handles, which are real simple. They're foam padded handles, a little clip for them, a little D-ring. The main thing with these type of bands is they're great for especially upper body exercises. So this program, so you can see it, is actually all upper body. So one thing with this program that's different, and the other one which follows up from this, is these are not total body exercises. The reason for this is that resistance bands are actually not very effective for lower body exercise. There are some things you can kind of modify them with. I'm not really a big fan of them. I prefer using these for upper body exercises. So all these 9 here are all upper body exercises using resistance bands. Some of them we're going to talk about ways to actually attach them to a door frame. And there's a bunch of different ways you can do that. And this way it's almost like having a home gym attached to a door. Now this is just a standard resistance band from the kit. Again, they're going to lengthen and stretch similar to our tendons and ligaments. So the longer they get, the more tension they build up over time. They're going to have little clips on them. Some have metal clips. These are plastic. And it's going to easily clip right onto the D-ring like this. So a couple things like this is, I'm going to show you. Clip this one on. So this would just be a single. You could also, with the 2 others, if you want a lot more tension, you can build that up and increase that. But basically with this band, these are just elastic tubes and they're hollow inside. So as you stretch them, they kind of flatten out a bit. Now with these programs or these exercises, I'm going to demonstrate some of them. You would want to attach this to a door frame. Now the way you'd want to attach this to a door frame is not to pinch this in the door frame because it might cut it, but you want to attach it. Some of them come with what are called door anchors. So all a door anchor is basically it's kind of a loop with something like bigger at the other end that you close in the door frame. So when you're looking at a door, you have the top, side, and bottom. Okay, and typically you want to put it near where the hinges are. You don't want to put it to where the door is opening. But anywhere inside the door, so when the door is closed, it anchors this band. Okay, so you can attach to the top, side, bottom, depends on the exercise we're doing. But with that door anchor, it's holding it from being pulled through the door. It doesn't damage the door. Typically it's like a little soft ring. Some of them have like an encased a hoop or something that they put in there. But usually that's a good way to do it. You can also just attach like a loop that you can attach to the door, tie on the other side of the door. What you also want to do if you're attaching it to the door is make sure that if the door is closing, you're pulling it this way. You don't want to have it set up so if you pull on it too hard, it releases and the door swings open. Because these things will swing back at you kind of like a rubber band, and you don't want to get hit by them. So the main thing with these is you want to use it so that when the door swings closed, you're pulling to the point where the door would never pull through that way. You don't want to have it to where it's swinging open, and it's very important just to be safe with these. That is one thing. I have worked with some people over the past where these things over time might dry out and break. You can also get the more expensive ones which actually have kind of like a fabric sleeve over them. What that does is it helps with these not drying out so they last a bit longer. Plus, if they do snap, they snap inside this. Otherwise, this is like a big rubber band, snappy. You can actually get a pretty good bruise from them if you're not careful. The other big thing when you're using resistance bands is don't just let them go. You build up a lot of tension. If you just let them go, they will shoot like a slingshot. So you want to gradually, as you're done with your exercise, not let go of it, but release the tension, and then you can let go of it. Don't just let it go, because these will shoot all around. So just be careful of that and aware of that. So let's start off with exercise number 1. This program itself can be done like the other programs, reading from left to right. Okay, so the first column is going to be all basically upper body mostly pushing and pulling exercises. There's some presses. And the second series, there's some more pulling from different angles. And then the third is all, well, some of it's core and some of it's basically lateral movements and pressing. So this one especially, you can kind of start anywhere with. When it comes to the anchor points, the top 4 here are going to be anchored to the door, as well as this one. These 2 over here and this one, these 4 on the bottom, are going to be standing on the band. So typically if you're standing on the band, you want to have sneakers on or socks or something, because as these stretch, if you're in your bare feet, they can kind of pinch your skin. So if you're using these, I would suggest making sure you're wearing some type of footwear, because, so this doesn't rub against your skin as it stretches, because it can give you a bit of a burn that way. Again, don't let me scare you about these things. They are awesome. They do a lot of great things you cannot do with dumbbells. Cable machines, they kind of simulate a cable machine in a gym, which is very expensive. But the difference with these is a cable is the same weight for the entire line, whereas these change resistance, especially based on how far you stand from the anchor point and or how many bands you put on. You can modify it quite a bit. So let's start off with the first one. So this first one is basically a chest press. So with this, you would be attaching the band behind you on in the door frame and stepping forward. Now, one thing I like to change with this picture, she looks like her knees are bent, she's just standing like this. I would prefer you have one leg forward, one leg back. It's better for balance, especially when you're pushing. So if you're like this pushing, you're kind of leaning into it. If you lose your balance, you can fall forward or sideways or backward, because these are going to pull you quite a bit. So it's better if you have your feet staggered a bit so you can control that, especially if you lose that tension, or that tension is too much or forcing it, it pulls you back. You have that back leg to kind of support you. If your feet are squared like this and bent, it might kick you back onto your heels and you might fall backwards. So you just be careful of that. Again, these are excellent things. There's a bit more safety things to look for. Obviously with dumbbells, there is some safety concerns as well. If you drop them or you can't lift the weight off yourself, just being careful is key with this stuff. But this one here especially is basically going to be a chest press. So it's like a standing bench press, okay, with one foot behind the other, and you're pushing. The band will be attached at the door frame behind you. And again, when you're done, don't just let it go. Come back, step towards the door, and then just kind of release it. Okay, so that's number 1. So that's going to work your chest, the fronts of your shoulders, your triceps. It's all going to be working together. Now the next one here in the middle, number 2, is a row. So this one, same kind of thing. You keep it attached in the door frame, but you're going to turn around and face it. So this one is going to be a row. So this picture actually shows a row. Same thing with her feet together. I prefer one foot behind the other just for balance. Typically works on most of these better. And just rowing and retracting. Very important to help with your posture. Keep your head back. Don't be hunched and pulling like this. Be up nice and tall. Exhale as you pull. Now, with these type of rows, and even with the chest press, you can have your palms facing down. You can be rowing this way. You You can be in neutral this way, pushing. You can twist it. There's different ways that you can be doing this stuff. Now, one thing with both of these is I would not recommend alternating. You can alternate a bit, but you lose tension. So you don't have as much tension, whether you're pulling, alternating. Sometimes this kind of saws a bit and goes left to right, so it's better to do them both at the same time. One other nice thing is that if you have a stronger right or left side, it's not going to compensate for the weaker side. So the stronger side is not going to take over for the weaker. So the nice thing with this is that both sides have to hold up as much of half the weight as the other. So that's an important thing. The next one here is basically going to be like a chest fly. Now this one shows it with a single arm. I didn't have the picture for both at the same time using a band, so I wanted to put this one in there and really explain how it works. Same kind of thing as number one. The band is going to be attached in the door frame and you're going to be facing away from it. So with this one, you're actually going to be pulling in like this. As you pull in, the bands are going to be going up over your shoulder. So you're going to be pulling like this, out. It's like a standing chest fly. Again, same thing with one foot in front of the other. Balance like this, bring it back, elbows slightly bent, squeeze it in. And again, as you squeeze it in, the bands are going to be over your shoulder. Okay? So they're going to be slightly above shoulder height as you fly them in and out like this. So your palms come together in the center. This one you want to inhale on the way back, exhale on the way forward. Now, number 4, as we drop down to the next row, is going to be a reverse fly. So that one is very similar to this chest fly, but we're going to reverse it. So this one you're going to be facing the door and you're going to be pulling. Okay, so if the door is in front of me, I'm going to be pulling and pinching my shoulder blades back. This one is one where most people are very weak. So you want to start with the lightest tension band you can. And basically as you come back, you're just creating a T. So the tension is pinching your shoulder blades in the center. Keep your chest up and head back. Don't collapse in and pull like this. So this one is, like I said, it's one that's going to be the lightest tension you can. And the other thing which I'll mention with all these things, before you add a band or you jump up to the next level of resistance, you can also make it tougher by standing further away from that anchor point. So if I'm doing this one here, number 4, and I'm doing the reverse flies, if it's too tough, just step in a little bit and you can reverse fly. If it's too easy, you step back. One great thing about this routine, or using these, is that you can modify. Let's say you're doing, now all these are set up in terms of repetitions. That's one other thing that's different with this program, is everything is set at 15 repetitions. It's not for time, okay? Again, it's going to be only upper body, and it's going to be counting repetitions versus doing it for time. So if you have to do 15 repetitions and you do 10 and it's really difficult, you're having a hard time to complete those other 5, step in a little bit closer, which reduces the resistance but allows you to keep doing those repetitions. So you could do the first 10 at whatever tension that you can bear, and then if you need a little bit less, get a little bit closer, loosen that tension a bit. So that's one of the nice things. And if you've done 10 reps and they don't feel like they're that tough, step back. So make the band stretch a bit more. So now you have more resistance on those last 5, which is going to be the most important. So when you look at repetitions, if you're looking at, let's say, 15 repetitions, the first 10 are work, but really the most work gets put in at the end. Okay, so those last 3 to 5 repetitions are the most important. That's why you should really focus on your form and technique. So again, the difference with these is you can change during your set how much tension you're using by moving forward or back away from that tension point. So the longer these things stretch, the more tension you get. Unlike a dumbbell where it doesn't change wherever you're standing, it's the same thing, it's pulling down with gravity. Okay, so we finished with number 4, which is a reverse fly. Again, making sure that you're pinching your shoulder blades. This picture shows her hands up a bit higher. You can go shoulder height or a bit higher. Typically, you're not going to go lower. Okay, so it's always going to be at shoulder height or slightly above that, pinching the shoulder blades as you come down. Number 5, which is right in the center of this program, is one of the most important to help with shoulder stability. We have a lot of issues with people with carpal tunnel issues and golfer's elbow and tennis elbow. A lot of it originates from poor posture, especially in your shoulder blades. So this one, you would attach the band, you'd be facing the attachment point, you attach it high on the door frame, and this one you're going to pull straight down and kind of pass your body a bit with pretty much straight arms, elbow slightly bent, and stop up here. With bands, you always want to keep the resistance on. You don't want to let it just kind of jerk you back and slack. You want to keep that resistance, so you keep that motion. You're controlling the resistance, again, very similar to your muscles where they lengthen and shorten, okay? So that's the same kind of thing, but on this one, you're exhaling as you pull down, inhale as you come up just above shoulder height. So again, this one helps a lot with posture and your shoulder blades to keep, especially if you have headaches and things like that, this actually does a lot to help to kind of retract your head so you're not getting so much pressure on your neck. Okay, the next one is going to be a lateral raise. Now this is one of the first ones you're actually going to be standing on the band. So this one, you're going to stand on the band, typically about the arch point of your shoe. There's going to be a little bit of space there, which gives you enough space to put this under, but you might pinch it a bit. So if you pinch this band a bit, just kind of pick your feet up a bit to release it, because sometimes you'll go to pull it up and one side feels tighter than the other, so just kind of release it so they both feel equal, okay? Now on this one as well, since we're not using the interval timer, when you go from one exercise to the next, you should probably be doing about the same thing, about 10 to 15 seconds before you move to the next exercise, okay? And we'll talk about sequencing at the end as well. I just wanted to cover the form and technique with these. So with this lateral raise, you want to come out to the sides. You don't want to go up above shoulder height. Just the shoulder height at 180 at the shoulders is very important. And then as you come down, you'll get to a point where you're losing resistance on the band. So typically right about maybe 15 to 20 degrees you'll lose resistance, and then you'll feel it pick back up then. Typically this one, again, you're going to want to use a really light resistance band, nothing real heavy. You're not going to have a lot of leverage to pull up a real heavy band, but it is a great shoulder exercise. So again, this is the first one in this series. We're going to be standing on the band. The others were attached in the door frame. This one you're going to be standing on the band. Now the next one, which is the first one in the bottom row, is going to be a shoulder press. Now this one, typically you're going to stagger your feet. The previous one, you're going to have both feet about equal together, about hip width apart. This one, you're going to stagger your feet. Now what you're also going to want to do is you're going to step on this band, but you're going to step on it with your back foot. Just like the picture. Your front foot is out of the picture, your back foot is slightly back, and that band is going to be underneath that. What you also want to do is you want to have the band behind your shoulder. Okay, you don't want to have it in front, it'll kind of pull down and kind of catch on your arm. You want to have it behind your shoulder. Okay, so as you press up, it's actually kind of going away from your body a bit. So this one, with the band, you actually can do an alternating press if you want to. Again, start off with the lightest resistance band you can. One thing you cannot change with this one is you can't increase or decrease your height. You can bend your knees if you need to for less resistance, but it's not like the others where you can step closer or further away to change your resistance. So start off with a light band on this one and extend as far as you can, and then only come down to about shoulder height. Again, once you get to a certain point, you feel the resistance leave a bit, but it's still going to be there because these are, the length on these, unless you're really short, you're still going to feel that resistance at the bottom. Okay, the next one next to it is basically a standing curl. This one you're going to step on it underneath your front foot. Again, under the arch point, bring it straight up. Now this one, you typically want to do with both hands at the same time. The difference between this one and a dumbbell, as I discussed in the other workout, is with a dumbbell, you don't have any resistance from here to here because it's pulling straight down. With this one, the further and closer up you get, the more resistance you have. So with this one, as you get to the top, you want to kind of flex at the top and then come down. Don't go all the way down, but have a slight bend in your elbows, but make sure you let the arms relax a bit. So all the way up and all the way back down. Exhale as you curl it up, inhale as you go back down. Very important, especially on all these, making sure you're going through the breathing cycles and all the guidelines we talked about before. Okay, now the ninth one is going to be a tricep extension. Same thing, just like in the picture. You're going to be staggered feet. The band is going to be behind or underneath that back foot. You're going to be extending with your triceps straight up. This one you can do alternating as well. But again, start light, the lightest band you can, and then increase more as you go along. Now again, with this pack here, this comes with 3 different bands. So typically it's going to be a light, medium, and heavy band. You can do 1 at a time, you can do 2, you can do up to 3. Now note, if you have 3 bands, it's going to be a lot of tension, and it's going to be very difficult to do these, more bicep and tricep exercise. So unless you're really strong, you can do that. But the one thing that you want to look at is if, as you increase the number of bands on these handles, you're increasing a lot more tension. Okay, and with that, it can rub on your skin or your shirt. So you got to be careful that the way you're using it, that it's not pinching your skin or pulling your hair, because these things will pull your hair. So just be aware of that as you're using it, that it is going to lengthen and it might pinch as you go along. So be aware, try not to be touching more than the handles. These tubes will touch you in certain exercise, especially overhead things. Just be aware that it might rub on you. Just kind of change your angle a bit if you're feeling it too much rubbing on your skin. Always obviously wear the proper clothing when doing this type of stuff, shorts, t-shirt, workout pants, whatever. And try to be careful not to get your hair caught in this, because these will, again, they kind of shorten and pull. Again, try not to scare you guys about this, but just be aware of the guidelines and know what you can and can't do with these. But again, they're a bit different than free weights because you can work in different angles. We can't do this stuff with dumbbells. We can't use any other types of weights to do this stuff. But it's a great complement. Again, there's not any real core exercises in this. There's no lower body exercises. You can do squats and things with them. I just think technique-wise, it's better just to use your body weight and or some light weights with that. These are great, like I said, for upper body movements, things you can't do if you are just doing body weight exercise or even light dumbbells. You can change a bit more with these. So these would be considered resistance training, different from all the other programs we had talked about, but a great simple thing. They come in this little carry bag, simple if you're traveling or you don't have much space. Any door will do. It doesn't have to be any specific size. Again, some of them have a door anchor or door attachment, as they call it. You can also, one other thing to look at is if you work out in a basement, or your area's in a basement, if you have any type of metal support pipes or beams down there, wrap this around that. If it has any type of abrasion to it, you can actually put a towel around that point, where you can attach like a carabiner clip, something like that. That would work with these. Anything that's not abrasive that would rub these works well. So you can attach to something. If you attach to something that's real heavy, you can't move, that works well. But if you attach to something that's not that heavy, these will pull a chair or anything towards you. So you got to be careful of this. I like the door attachment and or like the support beams in a basement work well. Anything like that for these movements work very, very well. So again, this is a 9 exercise layout. It's all upper body, it's all resistance based. It's great for toning muscles and increasing strength. It's not the same thing, obviously, like I've discussed with weight training. It's really totally different. After this, also, you're going to have a tracking grid. And on these tracking grids, there's the first 6 and the last 3. On this, you would be writing down, instead of weight that you lifted, would be the color of the band or the number of bands you used. So the bands are color code. There's no specific system. All companies are different. There's not like green is this, but they're all totally different. So the color of your bands is obviously important. And you can, sometimes they're marked in terms of what tension. Sometimes you just got to pull on them and kind of feel. But the main thing is these sets of resistance bands are very cheap, and you'll really feel them, and you'll feel that change pretty quick with this type of program. So again, there are 9 in this program. It is not a total body, and it's something that really works well to complement the other things that you're doing. So this one is not going to be conditioning as much. Your heart is going to be up, your breathing is going to be up. It's going to be work, but not like the others, because again, this is not total body. It's mostly all upper body exercise, and it's something that you have to kind of build up and work into. So a good complement to the other things, kind of mix it up. but not something like a complete program. But I want to put this in there because they're really inexpensive to use, simple to set up, and they're very effective. So for home gym or workout, these would be very good tools to have, and something I recommend to all my clients and people that are looking for something, especially if they're looking to help with their posture or starting to lose muscle mass or strength. These are great. Obviously, they're used a lot in physical therapy, any type of resistance bands or TheraBands. Some of them are going to be flat. I've had a lot of clients go through physical therapy and they'll give them bands, or a lot of times they don't actually have the handles or the ends on them. They just have to grab them, and not as effective that way. There's also ones that are going to be flat, kind of like a big, huge rubber band. Those are good for other things, but not for this kind of stuff. These, you want to have a foam padded handle, because as you stretch a big rubber band like that, that's where it stretches out and it can kind of pinch your skin. So you want to have something. These allow you to basically be using an elastic band, but not actually touching it because all this attachments. So it's a better way to be using resistance bands rather than just kind of getting the tubing. You can get the surgical tubing really inexpensively, but then you're going to have to hold on to it. It's not as ergonomic as using a handle. So those are the things I want to look at with this program that are very effective and simple to use. These are the 9 basic circuit things using resistance bands that work really well. So try this out as a complement to the other programs that we've been working on, and let me know if you have any questions, and I hope you enjoy the program.